was always the easy child, not the loved one, the reliable one, the one who didn't cause problems, who didn't raise her voice, who learned very early that asking for help only complicated things. Growing up, my parents used to say the same sentence over and over like it was a compliment. "Thank God we have you." Back then I thought it meant pride. Now I understand. It was a warning. My younger brother, Lucas, was the opposite of me in every way. Loud, charming, reckless. Full of big ideas that sounded impressive but never survived reality. He quit things halfway through. He made promises he didn't keep. He borrowed money with the confidence of someone who had never had to pay it back. And every time he fell, someone softened the landing. That someone was me. When he dropped out of college, I covered his rent, just for a few months. When he lost his car in a shady business deal, I lent him money until he got back on his feet. When he started a company that collapsed in less than 6 months, my parents looked at me and said, "It's temporary. He just needs support." And I believed them. I always believed them. I started working at 18. I saved obsessively. I said no to trips, no to luxuries, no to anything that wasn't necessary. I lived below my means while everyone else lived on hope and excuses. I wasn't building a dream. I was building security. The house was the proof of that. It wasn't big. It wasn't fancy. But it was mine. Bought after 12 years of discipline, spreadsheets, skipped weekends, and nights staring at the ceiling wondering if it would ever be enough. The day I signed the papers, I sat alone in my car and cried. Not because I was sad, but because there was no one to call. My parents congratulated me later. "We always knew you were responsible," my father said. Lucas didn't even show up. At the time, I didn't realize that house wasn't just my achievement. It was also the last thing they expected me to sacrifice. The conversation happened on a Sunday night. Family dinner, plates neatly arranged, voices calm, faces rehearsed. My mother started. "We need to talk." My father avoided my eyes. Lucas wasn't there. That's when I heard the sentence that shifted everything. "Your brother is in serious trouble." I asked how serious. They exchanged a look, too quick, too practiced. $180,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. How? "Bad investments, gambling, things spiraled," my father replied, vague and uncomfortable. I laughed, a short, nervous laugh. "And what does that have to do with me?" My mother reached for my hand. "Honey, we think you can help." At that moment, I still didn't understand what they really meant, until my father finished the sentence. "If you sell the house, this all goes away." The silence that followed was heavy enough to hurt. "Sell my house?" "It's just property," my mother said, as if she were talking about a couch. "Family comes first." Something inside me cracked, not anger, clarity, because for the first time I saw it clearly. I wasn't their daughter in moments like this. I was their backup plan. That night, I didn't say no, but I didn't say yes either. I smiled. I hugged them goodbye. I got into my car, and I cried until there was nothing left. For 3 days after that dinner, my phone didn't ring. No calls, no messages, no apologies, just silence. At first, I thought maybe they were giving me space. Maybe they realized how cruel the request had been. Maybe, just maybe, they were reconsidering. I should have known better. On the 4th day, my mother called. Her voice was soft, too soft. "I've been worried about you," she said. "You sounded distant the other night." I stared at the wall while she spoke, tracing the crack near the ceiling that I'd never bothered to fix. "I'm fine," I replied. "We just don't want this situation to tear the family apart." There it was, the shift. Not concern, control. By the end of the call, the word house had been mentioned 5 times, the word sacrifice 7, and the phrase, "What kind of sister would let this happen?" Once, carefully placed, like a knife pressed gently against skin. My father followed later that night. His approach was different, practical, cold. "You don't need that much space anyway," he said. "You could rent something smaller, temporarily." Temporarily. That word had ruined more years of my life than I cared to count. "This isn't my problem," I finally said. The silence on the other end was sharp. "He's your brother," my father replied. "And we're your parents." As if that settled everything. The next day, Lucas showed up at my door, unannounced. He looked thinner, older. The confidence he used to wear so easily now hung loose on him. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "I didn't want it to come to this," he said, stepping inside like he still belonged there. He sat on my couch, the one I'd paid for in cash. "I just need time," he continued. "You always land on your feet. You'll be fine." That sentence hit harder than the number ever did. "You're asking me to lose everything," I said, "so you can avoid consequences." He shrugged. "It's not like you have kids or a husband." That's when I realized something terrifying. They didn't see my life as real. It was just flexible, a resource to be redistributed. When he left, I locked the door and slid down against it, my heart pounding. I felt small, used, disposable. That night I opened my laptop, not to cry, to calculate. If I sold the house at market value, paid off the mortgage, fees, taxes, there would be money left. Not just enough to cover his debt, enough to disappear. The idea scared me, and for the first time, it also felt like freedom. The pressure escalated fast after that. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly checked in. Old family friends called to remind me of how much my parents had sacrificed. Even my aunt, who'd borrowed money from me once and never repaid it, told me I was being selfish. I stopped answering the phone. Then the guilt tactics changed. My mother sent a message at 2:14 a.m. "Your father hasn't been sleeping. He blames himself." Another one the next day. "If something happens to him, I hope you can live with that." That was the moment something inside me went completely still, because love doesn't sound like that. Love doesn't keep score. Love doesn't send invoices disguised as concern. A week later, I met with a real estate agent. I didn't tell anyone. As she walked through my house, complimenting the light, the layout, the neighborhood, I realized how little my family had ever noticed any of it. They had only seen what it could buy. When she left, I sat on the floor of the empty living room and whispered out loud, "I choose me." And once that sentence existed in the air, there was no taking it back. The house sold faster than I expected. 4 days. That's all it took for 12 years of discipline to turn into a signature and a wire transfer. I told myself not to feel guilty. I reminded myself that this wasn't betrayal. It was survival. Still, when the agent called to confirm the offer, my hands shook so badly I had to sit down. I accepted without negotiating. Speed mattered more than profit. The inspection passed. The paperwork moved quickly. Every step felt unreal, like I was watching someone else dismantle my life piece by piece. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell Lucas. I didn't tell anyone. At night, I walked through each room slowly, touching the walls, memorizing the creak of the floorboards, the way the light hit the kitchen counter in the morning. I wasn't grieving the house. I was grieving the version of myself who thought this place made me safe. 2 days before closing, my mother called again. "Have you made a decision?" she asked. "Not yet," I lied. She sighed, loud enough for guilt to travel through the phone. We're running out of time. I almost laughed. They had spent years running out of my time. That night, Lucas texted me a single sentence. They're saying you're heartless. I didn't respond. On the morning of the closing, I wore black. Not because I was mourning, because it felt like armor. The office smelled like stale coffee and cheap air freshener. The attorney slid the papers toward me, explaining clauses I barely heard. Once this is signed, there's no going back, he said. I looked at the line where my name would go, and I signed. When the funds hit my account, my phone buzzed. The number was surreal. Enough to erase my brother's mess. Enough to start over somewhere no one knew my name. Enough to never ask permission again. I didn't celebrate. I booked a one-way ticket. I opened a new bank account at a different institution. I transferred most of the money. I canceled subscriptions. I changed passwords. I requested my credit reports. I closed social media accounts I hadn't used in years. I wasn't panicking. I was precise. That evening, I made one mistake. I met my friend Sarah for coffee. She noticed immediately. "You're leaving," she said, staring at me. "I'm just tired," I replied. She didn't buy it. "Your house?" My silence answered for me. "Oh my God," she whispered. "They made you do it, didn't they?" "No," I said. "They tried." She reached for my hand. "Where are you going?" "I don't know yet," I answered honestly. That night my parents called, both of them. I let it ring, then again, then again. Finally, I answered. "We heard you listed the house," my father said. My chest tightened. "Who told you that?" "That's not important," my mother snapped. "What matters is that you're doing the right thing." The entitlement in her voice made my decision final. "The house is sold," I said quietly. Silence. "You mean sold?" my father asked. "Closed this morning." My mother screamed my name. My father demanded explanations. Lucas grabbed the phone, his voice frantic. "You can't do this without telling us." I listened. Then I spoke. "I didn't sell it for you." The line went dead. I sat there shaking, because I knew one thing for sure. They weren't done with me. Not yet. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound felt louder. Every shadow seemed to move. I kept imagining my parents' car pulling into the driveway, Lucas pounding on the door, demanding explanations I no longer owed anyone. At dawn, I packed. Not everything, just what mattered. Clothes that didn't carry memories. Documents. My laptop. A single photo I almost left behind. The one where I was standing in front of the house on move-in day, keys in my hand, smiling like someone who still believed effort guaranteed safety. I turned it face down in a drawer. The car was already loaded when my phone buzzed. My mother. I blocked the number. Then my father's. Blocked. Lucas. Blocked. One by one, the ties snapped quietly. I didn't leave a note. I didn't owe closure to people who had never offered it. At the airport, I paid cash for a coffee I didn't drink. I sat far from the gate, hood up, heart racing every time someone said my name, until I remembered no one there knew it. The boarding announcement felt unreal. One-way flight. No return. As the plane lifted off, I watched the city shrink below me. Somewhere down there was the house. Empty now. Already belonging to someone else. I didn't cry. I felt light. For the first time in my life, I wasn't being pulled in any direction. I landed in a city I'd never visited before. Not because I loved it, because it had no history with me. I checked into a small hotel under my middle name. The receptionist didn't look twice. That alone felt like a miracle. The first message came that night. An email from my father. "We just want to talk." I didn't reply. The second came from an unknown number. "You're making a huge mistake." I deleted it. By day 3, the tone changed. "Your brother is getting threats. Your mother is sick with worry. If you don't come back, don't bother coming back at all." That one almost made me laugh, as if I still belonged. I paid for a month in advance at the hotel. Then 2. I found a short-term rental across town and moved again, just in case. Paranoia? Maybe. But survival has a way of sharpening instincts. I walked everywhere. I kept my head down. I used cash when I could. I avoided places where people lingered too long. At night, I lay awake thinking about how easy it had been to disappear. Not because I was unimportant, but because no one had ever really been looking at me. A week later, Sarah emailed. "They called me." My chest tightened. "I didn't tell them anything," she wrote. "But they're scared. Not about you, about the money." That confirmed everything. I replied with one sentence. "Please don't share where I am." She never answered. 2 weeks passed, then 3. And slowly, something unexpected happened. The fear faded. I woke up without dread. I ate without rushing. I walked without bracing myself for someone else's emergency. I wasn't running anymore. I was arriving. Then, on a quiet Tuesday morning, I saw a familiar name in my inbox. Lucas. Subject line: "We need to talk. Now." My stomach dropped, because whatever he had to say, I knew it would change everything. I stared at the email for a long time. Lucas wasn't someone who asked. He demanded, he pressured, he manipulated. So the words, "We need to talk, now," weren't panic. They were desperation. I didn't answer right away. I closed my laptop and went for a walk, letting the cold air bite into my lungs. I needed to feel something real before stepping back into his chaos. When I returned, there was another message. "Please. I'm out of options." That was new. I agreed to a call, one call, on my terms. We used an encrypted app. No video, no location, just voices in the dark. He sounded broken. "You really disappeared," he said. "You gave me no choice," I replied. Silence. Then he exhaled sharply. "The debt isn't what they told you." My stomach tightened. "What does that mean?" "It's not just bad investments," he said. "It's not gambling either." I waited. "I borrowed from the wrong people." There it was. How wrong. "The kind that doesn't send reminders," he whispered. "They send messages." My heart started pounding. "Why would you do that?" "Because Mom and Dad kept pushing me to fix things fast," he snapped. "They said you always had money, that you'd help, that you wouldn't let me fail." I felt sick. "They used me as collateral," I said slowly. He didn't deny it. "They told me you'd sell the house," he continued. "They promised everything would be fine." Rage surged through me, but underneath it was something colder. Understanding. "Lucas," I said, "they didn't want to save you. They wanted to protect themselves." He went quiet. "If this debt gets paid," I asked, "what happens next?" "Nothing," he admitted. "I still don't have a plan. I still owe other people, just less dangerous ones. So even my sacrifice wouldn't have ended it. It would have reset the cycle." "They told everyone I stole from them," he added bitterly. "That you abandoned the family." I almost laughed. "They said the same about you," I replied. "That you ruined everything." Another long silence. Then he said something I didn't expect. "They're not trying to find you because they miss you." "I know," I said. "They're trying to force you to come back." He continued. "They think if they pressure you enough, you'll break." I closed my eyes. "I won't," I said. "Then they'll come after the money," he warned. "Let them," I replied. "It's not theirs." When the call ended, I sat there shaking. Not from fear, but from the clarity settling into my bones. I had never been the strong one. I had been the convenient one. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't pay the debt. I wouldn't return. And I wouldn't stay silent anymore, because disappearing had given me distance. But the truth would give me power. The first letter arrived by mail, not to my new address, but to my old one. Sarah forwarded me a photo, an envelope with my name printed in stiff, formal letters, a law firm I didn't recognize. My parents' return address on the back. They hired a lawyer, she wrote. They're saying you owe them. I felt strangely calm. People like my parents didn't hire lawyers to seek justice. They hired them to regain control. A week later, the email started. Legal language. Threats dressed up as concern. Phrases like family obligation and unjust enrichment. They claimed I had verbally agreed to help, that I had misled them, that the house had been family supported at the beginning, which was a lie. I forwarded everything to an attorney, a woman named Claire. Her response came fast. They don't have a case, she said, but that won't stop them from trying to intimidate you. Can they find me? I asked. Only if someone tells them where you are, she replied. That night I changed apartments again. I didn't tell Sarah. I didn't tell anyone. Control, I was learning, often hides inside access. Then something unexpected happened. Claire called me directly. There's something odd here, she said. Your parents keep emphasizing that you were always responsible, almost like they're trying to build a pattern. They trained me to be, I said. She paused. Did you ever sign anything? No. Ever co-sign loans for your brother? Never. Then they're bluffing. But she wasn't finished. There's another issue, she continued. Your brother's debt isn't the first time money disappeared in your family. My pulse spiked. What do you mean? There were withdrawals, years ago. Small amounts at first, always from accounts connected to gifts meant for you. My head started spinning. College fund gifts, birthday bonds, a small inheritance from my grandmother that I'd been told was managed for me. Are you saying... I'm saying there's a possibility your parents have been using your name as financial cover for a long time. The room felt suddenly too small. Why would they do that? I whispered. Because you never questioned it, Claire said gently. That night, I dug through old emails, old statements, documents I'd never examined closely because I trusted them. I found inconsistencies, gaps, money that should have existed, but didn't. And suddenly, everything made sense. The pressure, the entitlement, the panic when I refused. They weren't trying to save Lucas. They were trying to hide themselves. If authorities looked too closely, if lenders pushed harder, my name would be the clean one, the shield. I wasn't the backup plan. I was the firewall. And once I removed myself from the system, everything started overheating. The next morning, I received a message from my mother. Not threatening, begging. Please, come home. We can explain. And I stared at it for a long time. Then I deleted it. Because I finally understood something crucial. Going back wouldn't fix the past. It would erase my future. The noise faded faster than I expected. News cycles moved on. Comment sections closed. New scandals replaced old ones. The internet forgot my family the way it always does, quickly and without mercy. But my parents didn't forget me. The messages changed. No more accusations, no more threats. Just regret, carefully rewritten. We didn't know how bad things were, my mother wrote. We were trying to protect everyone. Protect. That word again. You misunderstood us, my father added in a separate email. We never meant to hurt you. I read the messages without responding. Not because I didn't feel anything, but because I felt everything. Grief doesn't always look like tears. Sometimes it looks like exhaustion. Lucas reached out once more. "They're asking if you'll talk," he said. "Just once, for closure." I sat with that word for a long time. Closure. The thing people ask for when consequences arrive. "What would that change?" I asked him. "It would help them sleep," he replied. I smiled sadly. "It already helps me that they don't," I said. He didn't argue. I think in that moment, he finally understood. Weeks passed. I extended my lease, bought furniture that wasn't chosen for durability, but because I liked it. I took a class just because it sounded interesting. I learned the city slowly. Cafes, parks, streets that felt safe. No emergencies, no guilt. No one asking what I could give up next. One afternoon, Claire called. "They're settling," she said. "Quietly, selling assets, avoiding court." "Good," I replied. "You don't have to do anything," she added, "unless you want to." I knew what she meant. "I don't," I said. That night I wrote a letter. Not to send, just to release. I wrote about being 8 years old and praised for being mature. About being 22 and paying bills that weren't mine. About buying a house no one celebrated. About selling it and finally choosing myself. Then I deleted it. Some stories don't need witnesses. I changed my number. Again. And for the first time, it wasn't fear. It was intention. I wasn't disappearing anymore. I was arriving. Fully. And that's when the final message came. From my mother. "If you ever come back, this will still be your home." I stared at the screen. Then I closed it. Because home is not where you're tolerated. It's where you're not required to disappear in order to belong. The last attempt came quietly. No lawyers, no accusations, no drama, just an invitation. A handwritten letter forwarded by Sarah. My mother's handwriting. Careful, familiar, unmistakable. "We're getting older," it began. "Life is short. Families should heal before it's too late." I folded the paper slowly, not because I was emotional, but because I recognized the strategy, time pressure, fear, the idea that forgiveness is something you owe before the clock runs out. For a long time, I had believed that too. That night, I walked through my apartment with the lights off. I knew every corner now, every sound. This place held no history of sacrifice, only choice. I realized something then. They missed the version of me who stayed silent. The one who absorbed damage so others wouldn't have to. The one who confused endurance with love. They didn't miss me. Lucas called one final time. "They're really not doing well," he said. "They ask about you every day." "Do they ask how I am?" I replied. He hesitated. "No." That was my answer. "I don't hate them," I said, "but I won't keep shrinking to make them comfortable." "I get it," he said quietly. And for the first time, I believed him. Months passed. The investigation closed without my name ever being mentioned. My parents sold the house they'd lived in for 30 years. Lucas moved to a smaller city. We exchanged a few neutral messages. Nothing deep, nothing dangerous. Distance became our healthiest relationship. One morning, while drinking coffee on my balcony, I realized something else. I hadn't checked my phone in hours. No anxiety. No waiting for disaster. Just silence, the good kind. I used the remaining money to invest, not in people, but in myself, education, experiences, stability that didn't depend on approval. I stopped explaining my choices. I stopped justifying my boundaries. And slowly, the guilt faded. Because guilt only survives when you still believe you're responsible for other people's lives. I wasn't. I never was. The house wasn't the thing I lost. It was the price I paid to finally see the truth. That love without respect is just control wearing a softer voice. That family isn't proven by how much you're willing to lose, but by how much they refuse to take from you. People say I disappeared. They're wrong. I stopped being visible to people who only looked at me when they needed something. And in that absence, I found myself.